So Andrew, could you let us know a bit more about the things the business should know before they go to China?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of technical knowledge that anybody needs to have. First of all, what business you're in, what markets do you hope to get into, what's the supply chains going to be necessary, what are the support services you're going to need. Allied to that, it's a whole series of questions about how does the law work in China? What can you do? What can't you do? What's it actually like working in an economy which has a lot of what we would call nationalized industries, what the Chinese would call state-owned enterprises. Clearly, these have a dominant position in the market, and clearly there's a political system that encourages them to do well. And yet, of course, we see in China the liberalization of the economy, so lots of private business, lots of enterprises, lots of business parks, lots of opportunity. But you need to understand what you can and you can't do from a legal point of view, regulatory point of view, and those kind of allied things, particularly in services industries, about immigration rules, who's allowed to come here on what basis for what length of time, and the qualifications. If I'm in accountancy, what can I practice in China, and so forth. So there's a whole series there of technical stuff. There's then a whole swathe of stuff that you've described of needing to know if I and perhaps me and my family were going to go and live in another part of the world, what's it actually going to be like living there? From the point of view of accommodation, you've talked about food, you've talked about transport, you've talked about the culture, things like where would you find schools and so forth. That's all really important too. And then there's a third thing, which is, if I want to go there, there's all sorts of different ways into, and the one we're particularly interested in at EFEC is, how would you work with the business parks? And how, in fact, would you work with a company like EFEC? Well, we'll talk about EFEC in a moment, but what you, I think, would need to know as a business person sitting here today in Northern Ireland and thinking, well, how would tomorrow look for me, and is China part of that, is about who can help you when you get there, and how can they help you, and what will that mean to your company and its plans, and can you, in all of that world of understanding what the technical requirements are and the rules of the game, of understanding what the opportunities are in terms of markets and in terms of your supply chain and so forth, and understanding what help might be there, can you begin to see a way in which that would really help your company? And I think that is against a background of, we know the Chinese economy is growing faster than more or less anybody else's. We know it's going to be the biggest. It doesn't mean to say it's like Dick Whittington, you go over there and you put your hat out and, everything just falls into it. But it does mean to say, with intelligent relationships, with the right people in the right way, you can really get somewhere here in a world that's increasingly going to pay a dividend if you have those relationships manifest themselves in your business partnerships for the future.
And so what EFEC can do for the businesses in the UK?
EFEC is in a wonderful position because it has credibility and respect and indeed traction in China. What I mean by traction is this is a company that's actually doing business in China and has been doing for 15 years. The credibility is hugely important because EFEC, and particularly through you, Lily, works very closely with significant influencers in China. Now, significant influencers means the politicians, it means the state-owned enterprises, it means the people running business parks, it means business in China, it means influencers as we work in that world between education and business in those kind of partnership. All of those people are tremendously important because what EFEC is doing is saying to the people in Northern Ireland, we actually understand China, we work in China, our people are on the ground in China, and we're working with business parks in China to help you. Specifically, we're working with business parks in Lingang, which is a very exciting new development in the Shanghai region, a city for the future, a green city, beautiful air, beautiful design, and a long-term vision for being one of the great cities of the world. We're also working in Jilin, which is in Nanjing, the old capital of China. And that's, again, big park looking for a British, UK business to come across and invest and develop in China. So we start with the journey by being well grounded in China, but then thinking to ourselves, how would we make life easy for somebody whose business is here in the southwest of Northern Ireland? And I think that's along lines of the ones we've described, enabling a very clear path to be seen all the way through. What are the technological issues you might need to face? How are you going to do business in China that maybe start out using the technology that gets you there physically? What are the kind of technical, legal, practical arrangements you have to go through? How do we help you all through that? We can do this because we have people in China who understand everything you'd need to know about how you do that. We can also assist with the journey directly into the business parks with all the support and the preferential advantage that would bring for your company. And of course, then, through people like yourself, Lily, who've lived in both cultures long enough to know, this is the thing that this person coming from the UK will really most need to know about living in Shanghai, living in Nanjing. So we're providing a package, an end-to-end package here that really enables somebody to go on a journey. The other thing to say about EFEC is excellence first is what the E and the F stands for. What this means is we only work with the best organizations, only actually the colleges who are genuinely working with the business community in such a way the business community is properly engaged. And then we can work with both to help bring people into China. So it's a wonderful example here in the Southwest, because what you have as a college that's reached out to business is providing Mandarin training, is then saying that on its own is great, but let's give this extra value add of people begin to understand what it would be like to live and work in China. These people and other organizations that EFEC works closely with, from research community, from the innovation community, the industry community in the UK, add to the work we can do in China with the same people but in China, which enables us to plot that route for somebody very efficiently from where they start to where they want to finish. And the other thing to say about that is really that everybody's journey is going to be their own separate journey. So what EFEC is not about is a bulk buy, we'll give you some general stuff that will help you on the way, then we just get out of town. It's a working with you to make a success of your journey into the Lingang or the Qilin business parks, if that's where you want to go.